Mr. Chairman, your meeting is live.
Okay, I'll bring this meeting to order of the Senate Appropriations Committee. First item is call the roll.
Senator Driscoll?
Excused?
Senator French? Here. Senator Garou?
Excused?
Senator Larson?
Here.
And Chairman Salzar?
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
First item is Senate File 101, Second Amendment Protection Act Amendments 3. Mr. President, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, Chairman, and members of the committee. I bring you Senate File 101, Second Amendment Protection Act Amendments 3. Again, here we are trying to drag this sucker across the finish line. We almost had it last year and didn't stick around to override a veto. And
I'm aware of that.
yeah, this was your bill last year, Mr. Vice President, so you can feel my pain on getting so close. But you know this bill inside and out like I do. I could walk you through what it does and what it doesn't do, or you can ask me questions. How would you like to proceed in a matter of time?
Mr. President, I think we've all read the bill. If you just want to take a few minutes to briefly just go over it in a very broad stroke, I think we're all aware of it.
In a broad stroke, then I'll just reiterate my remarks during the introduction speech. Just for the body's edification and those watching online. Several years ago, we passed the Second Amendment Preservation Act, but we all knew the bill had some holes in it. I think some of us even voted against the final version of it because we flagged these concerns as potential holes that made the bill, it just put the bill in danger. The bill sponsors at the time promised to come back and fix it. And we've made several attempts since then to make those fixes. This bill seeks to close those gaps. It puts critical civil penalties into the law that let individual gun owners defend their rights in the event of a violation. Also, it clarifies that the federal government and its agencies like the ATF are not allowed to use Wyoming law enforcement officers to enforce federal gun control laws. Let me reiterate that, federal gun control laws, executive order, or international treaties. Third, it clarifies that no funds originating within the state may be used to aid in the enforcement of, again, federal gun control laws. Fourth, it clarifies that law enforcement may not join a federal task force for the purpose of circumventing SAPA and then resume their regular employment soon thereafter. But here's what the bill does not do. And I would like to clarify. It does not stop Wyoming from receiving federal assistance to enforce the laws of our state. It does not stop Wyoming law enforcement from seizing firearms or ammunition related to a criminal investigation into an alleged violation of Wyoming law. And it does not allow felons or other prohibited persons from possessing firearms. So with that, I'll stand for any questions. All right, I'll stand for, if you need anything back from me, I will sit tight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm going to grab some papers here real quick. As the senator said, and as his body all knows, this has been a much discussed topic here for a long time, so I will also breeze through what the bill does and mostly focus on what the bill does not do. I'm sorry, sir. Aaron Dorr on behalf of the members of Wyoming gun owners. As you hear from the sponsor, the bill does four primary things. It puts civil penalties into existing Second Amendment Preservation Act law. That way, if there is a violation of SAPA, the citizen directly can take the agency, not individual officers, but the agency into civil court for damages. That's on page 4, line 14 through page 5, line 12. We clarify also number 2 on page 3 that agencies cannot work around SAPA by having their officers loaned out to a ATF-style task force. Current law has exceptions for these task forces, and we're seeking to shut that down so the ATF cannot use Wyoming cops to enforce federal gun control laws. That's on page 3. Number three, we clean up what the existing law says. The current law has gaps in it where we've heard from law enforcement, they're not sure what they can and cannot do. So on page 3, lines 16 through 18, we clarify, they simply, it's just very simple. They're not going to be allowed to enforce any federal gun control laws. Instead, they will enforce the laws of the state of Wyoming. Number 4, we add in peace officer on page 4, lines 6 through 7. That was a mistake from the previous draft. It only had a penalty provision on public officers. That was a typo that's being fixed in this legislation. And finally, on page 6, we clarify that an officer may not simply go to work temporarily for a federal agency to circumvent SAPA and then come back to their native agency and then continue on with their employment. We have to be careful about these situations where, whether it's an MOU or some other situation where an officer who would not be able to violate SAPA with their Wyoming credentials could do so in a federal context. That's on page 6 and on page 7, lines 1 through 2. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to spend a brief moment here on what the bill does not do. I've seen some sensational claims over the last 48 hours on what this bill would do. I want to make sure we address those very clearly. On page 7, if you're on the bill, page 7, line 20 and 21, it makes it very clear that Wyoming can receive all federal assistance to aid in the enforcement of the laws of this state. So any federal assistance that Wyoming would like to receive, money, personnel, equipment, databases, all of it is permissible under SF 101 to aid in the enforcement of the laws of this state. I've seen claims just yesterday that even in cases where an officer is wounded, that we could not have help from the feds. That is absolutely false. It's in black and white, page 7, line 20 and 21. Also, to be very clear, nothing in this act allows individual officers to be civilly sued. We've heard this a lot. We heard it last year. I'm hearing it again this year. If you look on page 8, line 14 through 16, it's in black and white. No individual officers can be civilly sued under Senate File 101. Only the agency who employs them or the subdivision who they work for who knowingly violates SAPA could ever be charged in civil court with damages. So again, no individual cops can be civilly sued. Page 8, line 10 through 12, lines 10 through 12 clarify that also this does not prohibit Wyoming law enforcement from seizing firearms as an investigation into a violation of Wyoming law. Obviously, firearms and ammo can be confiscated incident to an investigation of an alleged violation of Wyoming law. And in fact, if you look at page 7, line 13 through 18, this bill doesn't even prevent Wyoming law enforcement from aiding federal authorities, even in cases where firearms are involved, if the underlying incident was a felony narcotics case or a felony persons crime. So an example of that would be they've got a vehicle coming up I-25 out of Denver. The federal authorities ask Wyoming to assist in detaining that vehicle. It's a narcotics violation. It's illegal federally and in Wyoming. Even if guns are involved, there's a clear carve out to aid Wyoming officers to still stop that vehicle. Same thing for a bank robbery. If they're chasing a bank robber from Denver, I'm gonna keep picking on Denver, I guess, today, and they need help to detain that individual, that's totally fine. There's complete carve outs to aid in the enforcement of these situations, even if firearms are involved. Briefly, Mr. Chairman, it also does not prohibit the federal government from enforcing federal laws in Wyoming. I've seen big claims about this in the last 2 days. Supremacy Clause violation, that's just simply not the case. We're only saying that the feds may not use Wyoming officers to enforce federal gun control laws. We're not telling the feds what they can or cannot do in this legislation. Lastly, Mr. Chairman, this does not prohibit task forces except for a task force whose sole objective is to enforce federal gun control laws. I've seen much of this in the last couple of days. Maybe you have as well. If you look on page 3, line 15, through page 4, line 2, it makes it very clear the only task force that's prohibited are things that deal solely with confiscation of firearms, ammunition, and accessories. And so we are absolutely not saying that Wyoming cannot help with a DEA task force or a U.S. Marshals task force or an ICE task force or any other sort of task force. Again, it's on page 3, line 15 through page 4, line 2. Lastly, Mr. Chairman, I've heard a lot of noise that this bill is just like the one in Missouri that got struck down, therefore this is going to get struck down as well. This is unconstitutional. That is also totally false. Senate File 101, as your bill, Mr. Chairman, last year, Senate File 186, was written in the wake of the Missouri law being struck down. This bill has been foundationally changed from inception, and it does not have the very specific things that got the Missouri legislation struck down. So that allegation is also patently false. Lastly, does not apply to felons. That's on page 8, line 20. This is not going to give firearms to felons. And it also does not apply to those who are in the state illegally. I've heard that as well in the last couple hours, that we're not going to be able to help the president, for example, deport foreign nationals. There's a carve out for that also on page 7, lines 7 through 11. Mr. Chairman, that's my conclusion on this. There are 2 amendments that may be offered on this issue. If that's the case, sir.
So I will only take amendments from committee members or the author of the bill.
Mr. Chairman, absolutely. And lastly, sir, this bill passed the session last year, the Senate 29-1, and it passed the House 53-7. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other public comment? Please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. My name is Alan Thompson. I'm the Executive Director at WASCOP, the Wyoming Association of Sheriffs and Chiefs of Police. And we had good conversations with the group behind the bill this morning and understanding the intent of it. And we've had, understand exactly where that is. But I think the concerns from our law enforcement that we expressed in our letter, all 23 sheriffs in the state of Wyoming and many chiefs from across the state are concerned with the impact of this law in the vagueness of some of the wording in there and the task force consideration especially. We did provide a list of amendments for you to consider, should you want to consider that. But I did want to point out that if you would, if we were to prioritize some of those amendments, if you would look at that subsection D, so I guess before that, starting on page 5, lines 21 through 23, if we look at sovereign immunity, law enforcement is in positions where they are tasked with making split-second decisions. And the only opportunity that we have to defend those split-second decisions are in a courtroom later on. And that's where any of those exceptions might apply. Now, sovereign immunity is a different term than qualified immunity, but what we're looking at, the protection that law enforcement gets is qualified immunity. Qualified immunity does not apply when there's a clear violation of law. Qualified immunity only applies when there's a constitutional question of law that hasn't been decided before. So if this were to make it into law, that section of the statute is unneeded, because if a law enforcement officer violated it, they would not get qualified immunity. And they would be subject to the prosecution or the civil component of this, whatever it may be. And then going into that whole of section D, which is the task force consideration, I understand that the concept of this bill is to really get at the fact that if the legislature were to pass this, it's because we don't want Wyoming law enforcement enforcing federal gun laws, especially what might be coming down in the future. However, what that does is attaches greater liability to law enforcement officers using those other task forces, because the actual language in D doesn't separate them as it does earlier in the statute. And once again, if this violation happens, there's all the violations that are in the statute to begin with. So this is almost like a form of double jeopardy or a double risk associated with it. And my conversation with many of the leaders across the state of Wyoming is their considerations right now are that they would pull people off of task forces because that puts them at greater risk for liability should something like this come up. And that means that the guy that's on there right now for 2 years, and then in 28, somebody else goes on there, in 30, somebody else goes on there. Pretty soon you have a whole agency full of people that fit the definition of D. And if you have one of these issues arise, that liability is extended. And then there was a good explanation earlier about the exceptions to this. But one thing that the exception doesn't consider, and I would like you to consider on page 7, line 22, is adding that when responding to or conducting law enforcement activity in an emergency situation. So if you look at those exceptions, it's all the things that we can still do in the course of normal law enforcement, but it doesn't contemplate the ability for a Wyoming law enforcement officer to respond emergent and not be able to take the time to understand what the crux of the case is before helping a federal law enforcement officer. And then I would just like to draw your attention to page 8, line 22, the definition of law-abiding citizen. I just want to point out that every single person sitting in a jail right now with heinous crimes over their head are technically meeting the definition of a law-abiding citizen because they are not convicted of a crime and otherwise wouldn't be prohibited from possessing or owning firearms until said conviction happened. So if you would consider adding language that would say is otherwise not engaged in criminal activity or felonious activities, and then continue that sentence on. And I know that there's individuals that have specific examples to speak with you about, so I will end my testimony now, Mr. Chairman, and answer any questions anyone might have.
Questions? Thank you. Other testimony? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Carl Germain. I'm the Lieutenant Colonel from the Wyoming Highway Patrol. I want to express how House Bill 130, as currently drafted, could negatively affect the Wyoming Highway Patrol's ability to fulfill its duties and maintain effective partnerships.
What bill are you referring to?
Senate File 101. Senate File 101. As currently drafted, could negatively affect the patrol's ability to fulfill its duties and maintain effective partnerships. The bill appears to prohibit the enforcement of any federal firearm regulations, including penalties for violations and restrictions related to cooperation with federal authorities. The language as written creates significant operational and personnel challenges for state law enforcement, including the following. The bill would limit or prevent Wyoming state troopers from participating in federal law enforcement task forces, including but not limiting to the 287G program, which is the ICE task force. So we have roughly a dozen troopers that are currently ICE certified. They're allowed to make arrests under the guidance of ICE if they come across an undocumented person in the United States. And in the course of those enforcement opportunities, that person could be in possession of a firearm, which is a violation of federal law that our troopers would have to take enforcement action on. Here recently, we had a protest in Rock Springs that involved Commander Bovino from the Immigrations, Customs, and Enforcement Border Patrol. We were called to assist Rock Springs PD. I question if we would have been able to send troopers had there been firearm violations there. We also have the Bureau of Indian Affairs Task Force, and that directly impacts the citizens of Wyoming, where we have troopers that are certified to be BIA officers, and they can take federal arresting authority on a tribe member. If a trooper doesn't have that certification, and we come across a member of the tribe on a state highway that is under the influence of alcohol, we can't take enforcement action. We're at the mercy of, do they have a BIA officer currently staffed and on duty, and can they get there quick enough? I personally was a commander in that region for 3 years, and I can attest that we've had multiple incidents where we had troopers who were not certified and had to wait for hours to get BIA support to come and take over the arrest. Other times, there were no BIA officers that were available, and we had to make arrangements to let a intoxicated driver be released to a family member because we can't take enforcement action without that BIA certification. The potential also exists under the course of that investigation that you could have a Wyoming citizen that is a member of that tribe be in violation of a federal law, and if they're acting on that BIA task force, they would have to take enforcement action. Oftentimes, these people are dangerous criminals and they need to be brought to justice. We also have troopers that serve on U.S. Marshal Task Force operations, and they do assist the U.S. Marshals with apprehension of violent criminals in Wyoming. Some of those persons may be convicted of gun crimes. We have troopers that are assigned to the Homeland Security Investigation Task Force. That gives troopers the ability to take narcotic investigations and human smuggling investigations and conduct an investigation. Oftentimes, our federal partners are stretched thin, and in remote parts of Wyoming, if we come across a human smuggling case, either they can't get there in time or they're hours away, and sometimes time is of the essence when you're conducting investigations. So the troopers that serve on any of these task force or any other task force as a lieutenant colonel of the highway patrol, my recommendation would be, if this bill passes the way it's written, would be to remove them from those task force. And so the limitation stems from potential that such participation could involve enforcement of federal firearm-related charges, even incidentally. The bill's restrictions could bar the Wyoming Highway Patrol from hiring or retaining any person who has previously enforced federal firearm laws in any capacity. This would severely limit our recruiting pool and could disqualify qualified candidates with valuable federal experience. Examples would be officers that are coming to us from other agencies that served on federal task force assignments or other joint operation venues, or even the military MP that is enforcing a federal law when people are coming on the base. These provisions could undermine critical public safety partnerships, reduce our effectiveness in addressing interstate crime, drug trafficking, human smuggling, immigration enforcement, and other threats that often require federal cooperation and create unnecessary administrative burdens. We would welcome the opportunity to assist in crafting amendments that would clarify or provide exemptions to allow continued participation in legitimate federal task forces, permit the employment of persons who previously enforced federal gun laws, and avoid unintended consequences for current state troopers assigned to task force. Thank you for your attention to this matter, and I'll be happy to stand for any questions. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, committee, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. As you all know, Wyoming is a vast state with a relatively small law enforcement. I'm sorry, my name is Ronnie Jones. I'm the director of Wyoming DCI. My apologies. I'll start over. Wyoming is a vast state with a relatively small law enforcement presence. To maintain public safety effectively, reliance on cooperative task forces with federal partners is not just beneficial, but it's critical. The Wyoming Division of Criminal Investigation is deeply integrated with federal operations and federal task forces, currently assigning 14 agents to various federal task forces. This collaboration yields tangible results for Wyoming. In the last 12 months alone, DCI has presented 50 cases to the United States Attorney's Office for prosecution specifically because of these partnerships. These prosecutions involve child sexual abuse material crimes, drug crimes, and violent crimes. Law enforcement officers and our agents frequently encounter tense, uncertain, and rapidly evolving situations. In these moments, survival can depend on split-second decisions. While Senate File 101 prohibits enforcing acts related solely to firearms in black and white terms, the reality of police work is rarely that simple. By introducing civil liabilities on top of the existing criminal violations, Senate File 101 creates a legal environment where agents may hesitate to act for fear of violating state law. This hesitation could jeopardize the lives of the agents and the public. It will also require our agents to constantly evaluate and reevaluate situations that they're in that are constantly changing. While no agent would intentionally violate this law, humans make mistakes. This bill creates significant financial exposure for the division and the Attorney General's office when mistakes occur. The bill imposes civil penalty, $50,000 per violation, against the agency alongside potential criminal penalties for individual officers. This creates a high-stakes environment where a single error in judgment leads to substantial liability, in addition to further liability, as interested persons now have a path to a claim. A primary duty of the director is to evaluate and mitigate risk through policy decisions. If Senate File 101 passes as written, the division or I must weigh the benefits of federal cooperation against the new legal and financial risks imposed by this bill. If the risk to the agents and the agency is deemed too high or unacceptable, I may be forced to remove Wyoming agents from federal task forces entirely. Even if agents remain, the level of cooperation with the federal government will likely decrease significantly to avoid running afoul of the new law. Withdrawing from these task forces would fundamentally alter the landscape of law enforcement in Wyoming. The breakdown in cooperation would not be limited to Second Amendment issues. It would negatively impact state and local collaboration with the federal government in all areas of law enforcement, diminishing the state's overall capacity to fight crime. I will stand for any questions if there are any. Nice to see you, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone online? One last opportunity, any public testimony? Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I hear the concerns generally about the bill and what it supposedly does and the flaws in it, but I didn't hear any specific references to the actual bill language, like line and page, and this is why we can't do 287G enforcement. I'm open for, if Mr. Chairman, if there's anything in this bill that would prevent our law enforcement from cooperating with ICE on a 287G, I need to know about it so I can fix the bill. But I need specifics. I don't need blanket talking points memos about this bill and what it supposedly does and does not do. I want specifics. So I will pledge to work with our law enforcement partners. If they have specific amendments to, if there are loopholes in this bill, I want to make sure that those are closed up and this bill is ready for prime time form, Mr. Vice President. So with that being said, I do have some language on a drafting error that we could either fix now in committee, or I can work on the weekend and get a slate of amendments for the floor on COW on Monday.
I
It's
will
up to
take an
you.
amendment from the author of the bill.
All right, so to fix a drafting error, we'll move language from section.
Let's begin, though, with moving the bill. First of all,
Yeah, go ahead and move
what is the pleasure of the committee? Is there a second? Second. Okay, it would now be appropriate, Mr. President, to entertain
My
your...
apologies, Mr. Vice President. Got ahead of myself. I know we got a lot to do today. So on page 7, actually page 5, section I, we need to move this language on lines 14 through 19. That paragraph there needs to be moved to page 7 under section 2.
Okay, is there a motion to do that?
Can we have a specific spot?
Where would you like to put it? That's what I thought he said.
I think if we work with LSO on this, this is, to me, it's a drafting error. This thing's in the wrong place. It's more of a conceptual amendment at this point.
Or where?
Mr. Vice Chair, what did you say? Where would you like it, Mr. President?
Immediately after section 2 on page 7, so
That's my motion.
Is there a second?
it'd be right here, probably line 19.
Second? Any other discussion? Mr. President, any other discussion on your proposal?
Not at the moment, sir. I will, like I said, I'll be around all weekend. I'll work on this. I'll get with law enforcement and hear their concerns. Hopefully, they have specific amendments related to the specific bill line items that they would like to be fixed, and we'll work with them and work with our federal partners as well, because last thing I want to do is prohibit ICE from doing their jobs, but we're talking federal gun control laws, and this bill is pretty specific on what you can and cannot do, but if I'm missing something, Mr. Vice President, I'll be happy to fix it.
Discussion on the amendment? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Anything else, Mr. President, that you want on your bill? Suggestions on amendments?
Not at the moment, sir.
Is there any committee member here who would like an amendment? Anyone? Any discussion on the bill?
Question. Whoops, sorry.
Senator Grew.
Thanks, just a quick comment. First, I'd like to thank the bringer of the bill and his offer to work with law enforcement. I'm honest, if I can have just a little personal privilege, I've served with the good president for quite a long time. And when I heard the testimony I heard when I walked in the door, it's like, it just didn't match up with the fellow who's sitting there at the table right now. And I know that what we've got here is just a communication gap or a reference gap. So I would agree 100% with what he said. If you've got a specific, and I know there might be some floating around, a specific line and items that we can put into this bill to alleviate some of the things I've heard, because I know that is not the intent of this legislation, not even close. So I too look forward to seeing that as we move through the body. But for right now, this is an important bill. I don't know how I'm going to vote on it in final passage, but I do know this. It's an important bill. It's a serious bill. It's brought by a serious person, and we're going to move it forward. Thank you, Mr.
Any other
Mr. Chairman.
Roll call.
Roll call vote on Senate File 101 as amended. Senator Driscoll.
Aye.
Senator French. Senator Garou.
Aye.
Senator Larson.
Aye.
And Chairman Salzar.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, you have 5 ayes, do pass.
Thank you. The next item is Senate File 106, Welfare Fraud Prevention Act amendments. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bring you Senate File 106, Welfare Fraud Prevention Act amendments. This is my first ever venture in the Title 42 into the Department of Health and Welfare statutes, but we live in a time and a place now where everybody's keeping a close eye on our public benefits, and with the influx of so many undocumented and illegal aliens during the last presidential administration, the concern is that those people may be obtaining public benefits, and they should not be. Public benefits should be for U.S. citizens and Wyoming's people specifically. If you're not here legally, you should not be getting public benefits, period. That's common sense, Mr. Chairman. Also, what's common sense, if you are deceased, probably shouldn't be receiving public benefits, and I could go on and on. This is a common sense look back at our Welfare Fraud Prevention Act, brings it up to the times. It's really that simple, and there's I could walk you through the bill if you want me to, or yeah, okay.
It's a very important bill from a serious person. If you can just go over the highlights of the bill, that would be sufficient.
So the
I'd like
highlights.
to get public testimony if there's any.
You bet. The big highlight here is prohibition on self-attestation of years like, hey, I swear I'm here legally. Can I have my SNAP? You know, we're going to actually check. We'll run you through the SAVE system database that Homeland Security has to verify your eligibility. A lot of these things the department may already be doing, and it's just we might hear from the department and how we can better collaborate and get them what they need to perform their duties at the highest level here. So as we go through this, I'm not accusing the department of not doing this. I'm just wanting to make sure everything that we want is codified where it needs to be codified, and that we work with our partners at the department. And so here we are on page 4, we talk about residents, monthly address checks. Spilling over to page 6, retroactive Medicaid eligibility rulemaking. Eligibility redetermination is added. Here's a piece on page 9 that we might be able to take out if it's not applicable to Wyoming, prohibition on waiver of work requirements and exemptions. But we'll talk about this. I'm anxious to hear the discussion from the department and you on the committee on how to make this bill ready for prime time. So when we hit the floor, we're ready to go, sir. So I'll stand for any questions. Try not to bore you to death on Medicaid. Thank you.
I'll start with the general public. Please come forward, and then we'll go right into the agencies.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Jeff Daugherty. I'm here today on behalf of FGA Action. I'm going to be brief, given the weight and the volume of issues that this body has to get through today. But I do want to let you know that this is an administration priority bill, that the bringer of the bill has worked very hard to get to you. Mr. Chairman, I want you to know that ordinarily we would spend a lot of time with the staff working through issues because of the way this bill came to us. We haven't had that opportunity, but I've just had a conversation with the director and have committed to working with him to work through some of the issues and concerns that he's got if this body feels so inclined to move. So as the bringer of the bill said, and I'm so grateful to the bringer for making time to bring this bill this year because it's so important and pronounced in light of what we're seeing nationally. But briefly, this bill asks people to answer really hard questions like, are you dead? Are you registered in multiple states? Are you not willing to work? So there are a lot of issues that this bill addresses. I will tell you, I don't think that fraud is rampant in Wyoming like it is in other states, but these measures will help us ensure that Wyoming is better protected going forward. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm just going to stop there, and then if there are questions, I'll answer.
Is there anyone in the public who's not a registered lobbyist who's a member of the public?
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I'll say it again. Is there anyone here from the public who is not a registered lobbyist? Okay, thank you. Appreciate your testimony. I'll bring the agencies up first. Welcome. Director, assistant director. Who's first?
Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, committee. Mr. Chairman, my name is Corin Schmidt. I'm the director of the Department of Family Services. This is actually a joint bill between the Wyoming Department of Family Services and the Wyoming Department of Health. So as we walk through this legislation, there are different times where the requirements may apply to us, the Department of Family Services, as we administer SNAP, POWER, Child Care Assistance, and the Utility Assistance Program called LEAP. Medicaid, on the other hand, is administered by the Wyoming Department of Health. So in general, we have comments that we can offer just as an overview. There are a lot of the requirements that are in this bill that we already meet. And there really isn't any significant issues. The comment by the president around verification of alien status is something that we already do, and we will be expanding it to meet the requirements. There are other smaller provisions throughout that we would request some changes, but certainly can work with whomever or the LSO if that's an option.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Stefan Johansson with the Wyoming Department of Health. I'll echo Director Schmidt's comments. We greatly appreciate President Beitman, LSO, reaching out earlier this week to get some feedback on this bill. As Director Schmidt mentioned, it's a lengthy bill because these statutes are intertwined and somewhat confusing, given that the Department of Health and the Department of Family Services used to be one macro agency, and that's no longer the case. So some of the feedback that we provided to LSO was around deconflicting some of the direction which department is being referred to, since we operate separately, always in friendly partnership, but separately in terms of how we govern our programs. Mr. Chairman, as Director Schmidt mentioned, we're happy to answer any questions that you have. I'm joined by our state Medicaid agent today, Jesse Springer, and as Director Schmidt also mentioned, many of the provisions of this bill when it comes to citizenship verification, income verification, multi-state enrollment verification on the Medicaid side, we do that, and appreciate the comments earlier that Wyoming is in many cases ahead of the game with the systems that you all have invested in. We talked at length with your interim committee about how advanced Wyoming is relative to other states with the type of technology that we've implemented and the systems that we already interface with, both at the federal and the state level. So with a few tweaks, again, we've provided lengthy feedback, which I believe is being drafted by LSO as a longer amendment, which may be better suited on the floor. We're happy to continue to engage in those minor tweaks to this bill that can make it more workable and avoid some of those either unintended consequences or confusion that can come with the legal direction to either DFS or the Department of Health. With that, Mr. Chairman, happy to answer any other questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. Director. I would simply like to suggest that you work with the author on those amendments so that he knows what the changes may possibly be. Sir?
Anything to add, Jesse?
Chairman Salazar, Jesse Springer. Nothing to add, really. Just some of the mechanisms like monthly aren't currently possible with federal systems. So that I think that'll be something we address, but some of the systems we are already doing monthly or in real time. So we're doing it per upfront as before the person moves forward, but others such as dual enrollment in 2 states are actually currently done quarterly. And the Big Beautiful Bill of 2025 is building a monthly system or a real-time system. So that's going forward, but the real-time system won't be, or the monthly system won't be available for a few years. So we'll keep doing the quarterly deconfliction. And you know, we don't have very many people enrolled in 2 states. We've already been running that process for a long time. So most of these things we've been doing for at least a year, in many cases for more than 4 or 5 years.
The committee, Senator Guru.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for any of you. Mr. Springer just talked about timing and as one of the minor things, and it may be coming, a solution may be coming. Can you give me and I know we've got a lot to go over today, but is that generally the kind of tenor and change of issues that we might expect to see in an amendment that you're going to work with the author on? Is that timing, those type of things? I mean, I guess my point is, you currently don't have any programs where you just take one application, someone starts getting in on some program, and then you never talk to them again, you just write them checks forever and ever and ever. That doesn't happen very much around there, does it? No? Okay, I thought so. Thanks.
Other questions? Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Any other agency testimony? Any other agency testimony? Anyone from the public? Anyone would like to testify? Anyone? Happy to bring you up here if you want. Anyone online? Okay, what's the pleasure of the committee? Move. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Any discussion? Roll call.
Senator Driscoll.
Aye.
Senator French. Aye. Senator Guru.
Aye.
Senator Larson.
Aye.
Chairman Salazar.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, you have 5 ayes, do pass.
Great, thank you. Next is Senate File 123, Wyoming Energy Dominance Fund. Mr. President.
Thank you guys for getting through my bills so I can get back to the work of herding cats as Senate President. I bring you my last bill of the year, Senate File 123, Wyoming Energy Dominance Fund. This legislation is near and dear to my heart. Energy is a big, obviously I've spent over 20 years in the energy industry. I know it very well. I know how it impacts Wyoming and our economic development. I also know how we power the United States and supply critical energy, whether it's oil, gas, coal. Our uranium industry is finally coming back to life, and now we have a huge supply chain crisis with critical minerals that needs to be addressed quickly. So what this bill does is it creates the Energy Dominance Fund and the fund will be administered by the Wyoming Energy Authority in a similar manner that our energy matching funds were administered successfully, I would add, with a one-to-one match, and I'll let Rob get into the specifics of how the fund will operate and the technicalities of it, and I'll give you the big picture of why. The why is due to many different things outside of Wyoming's control, a lot of these energy companies that aren't wind or solar have had a hard time getting access to capital and have had a lot of regulatory uncertainty. Wyoming is at the tip of the spear for President Trump's energy dominance plan. And in order to make some of these big projects, I don't like having my back to the door. Energy projects happen, it takes a lot of capital up front and it takes regulatory certainty. So if we can help in any way to get some of these big projects, one-time projects going, I want to remove all roadblocks and bottlenecks and get these things going as fast as possible. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rob from the Energy Authority, and I'll yield to him.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President. Rob Krieger, Executive Director of the Wyoming Energy Authority. I think the President laid out the bill well enough. I'd just point to page 7, kind of walks through some of the do's and do nots for applicants that I think make a lot of sense. One of which is a 1-to-1 minimum matching ratio that makes sure the industry has some skin in the game as well. Also points out that in-kind contributions can't be allowed. And just for the committee's background and previous funds that we've administered, that has come up as a question. Previous legislatures have said, let's not do that. I think as the administrator of this, that makes a lot of sense. You know, an example, we had someone come forward with a very expensive microscope saying, you know, that should count as millions of dollars towards it. Who am I to judge how much that microscope is worth? So I think that's a good piece in here. Also, prior investment, I think, is an important caveat as well, that if folks are, say, have a $10 million project and they've spent all of that, and then there's a couple million more they need to do things, that's not what this is for, right? This is for us to partner at the outset. So I also would just point out, I think it's on page, let's see here, 10, lays out a process, one that we have the resources at the WA to administer should this become law. Just has a concept paper phase, full application. That's very much similar to the federal Department of Energy. So the industry, and I'm sure you'll hear from them, but they won't be caught off guard by that as well. A public comment period, which I think is super important, so we can hear what the public thinks about potential projects, AG review, and then governor review and determination. So, Mr. Chairman, I would just say that, like I said, we have the resources at WA to be able to rock and roll on this, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, sorry, and I just wanted to maybe talk a little bit more about the mechanics of how this thing works, because I know it so well. I guess I glaze over that the public's probably wondering how we're going to fund this thing. We are going to intercept the 1% of the statutory that we did, gosh, I think we were freshmen when that happened, of the mineral severance tax. This bill sunsets in 2 years, so this is basically a one or 2 year intercept of that 1%. It's money that industry has already paid in severance tax, and it's going back to reinvest in energy projects, big projects, like one-time massive projects that we need in Wyoming. Otherwise, we could lose out to other states, or we could just miss the boat completely. So that's the concept behind this. I don't know if it'll be enough money because there are some major projects, and maybe Mr. Krieger could talk to you about some of the possibilities of some of these projects if you wish, but that's how it's funded. If you have any more questions, I'll stand for those questions. Sounds good.
Mr. Chairman, you have someone from the State Treasurer's Office that's registered to provide testimony. I'm bringing on Kate Smith from the Treasurer's Office.
Please go ahead if you have testimony. Welcome.
And turn your microphone.
There we go. We're cooking. Here we go. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. My name is Katie Smith. I am the Chief Financial Officer for the State Treasurer's Office. My testimony today focuses specifically on some logistics. So on page 6, lines 1 through 6, as it's written, the investment earnings on this newly created Wyoming Energy Dominance Fund would be redirected to the general fund. Perhaps that's the intention, but if the investment earnings were intended to be distributed back to the Wyoming Energy Dominance Fund, language would need to be added. And specifically, we're thinking just something after that last sentence on line 6, along the lines of all investment earnings from this account shall be credited to the account. And that is all I have. So I stand for any questions.
Okay, someone wants to consider that, we'll take it up. Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone who would like to testify on this bill? Anyone? Please come on up. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a bill up downstairs, so I'm going to be very brief, but I just want to compliment the bringer of this bill. I think this bill is going to exceed expectations in terms of the ROI that our state realizes as a result of this investment. And I also will tell you that yesterday I was able to look at a letter from the administration from the White House in support of this project, and to my knowledge, that doesn't happen often. So I think it's great that the bringer is implementing directives and objectives of the administration. And again, strongly urge your support for this because I think it'll help the state greatly in the next couple of years. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
Any
you for your
questions?
testimony. Appreciate it. Any questions? Any other comments, testimony? Please come on up. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Pleasure to see you all. Pete Obermueller, President of the Petroleum Association of Wyoming. Very much in support of the bill. Echo the congratulations of the bringer of the bill for his hard work on this. Just a couple of points I wanted to make. The letter from the White House was mentioned, but I think it's worth mentioning that this concept of taking energy taxes paid and reinvesting in energy is not new and not new for this body. And it's also not new that the federal government is taking notice of those and then stealing our great ideas and doing them at the federal level. So this body just last year supported a pretty sizable investment in enhanced oil recovery. But we put a sunset on that bill if the federal government did it there. Well, they did it there, so the bill actually only lasted for 2 days. But the point is that the federal government looked at us for that leadership. And here they are again on this. And why? Because investments in these things return to Wyoming 2, 3, 10 times what we put into it. And again, I just want to underscore the point that it's severance taxes paid by our industries, not by the general taxpayer on their property taxes or sales taxes or any of that sort of thing. It's all severance taxes from minerals that fund it. I'll leave it at that, Mr. Chairman, but I'm happy to answer questions about the potential projects in oil and gas. I'm happy to do that.
Any questions? Yep. Appreciate it. Yes, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Travis Deta. I'm the Executive Director of the Wyoming Mining Association. Would also thank the bringer of the bill for his support on this. And I just, what's been said, I think that needs to be said has been said, but I just want to touch on a couple of things. Earlier this week, I've missed a lot of fireworks around the legislature this week. I was in Miami for the winter meeting of the American Coal Council. And this is a group of all of America's coal producers, marketers, railroads. We had representatives from the Energy Dominance Council there. And this bill was a center of conversation. Because what we're seeing at the national level is we're seeing an administration that is actually serious about energy production, about using our resources and on all the work strategy, and that being, gas, coal, nuclear. And this bill is something that we can do at the state level, again, to help kind of, accelerate those places in the supply chain that need to be met, to fill gaps in our energy systems, particularly with regards to uranium and nuclear. And the word that kept coming up over and over again was durability. This is an opportunity to really give our core industries, our coal, our oil and gas, our uranium, our critical minerals that are emerging right now, to work for them and to give them some durability, because at the end of the day for Wyoming, these industries are about revenue to state and local governments, and probably more importantly, or as importantly at least, they're about jobs for our young people. So the Wyoming Mining Association, my industry, fully supports the bill, and we would appreciate you moving it forward, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, could I just one quick thing? I just want to thank the Treasurer's Office for making that amendment suggestion. Would like to offer support for that amendment suggestion. You'd think we would learn our lesson in drafting these bills. The suggestion is that the returns from having invested go back to the Energy Dominance Fund. You're going to see a bill that's coming over from the other body on the bonding pool bill that you all did last year, where we forgot to put that language in last year, and so you're going to correct it this year on the bonding pool. It's the exact same language that the Treasurer's Office just suggested. She was suggesting for this. I think that language is appropriate.
Discussion? Yes, please, go ahead. Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that the amendment the Treasurer's Office, suggested be inserted on page 6, I think line 6. And I don't know the specific language, so I would like to have the Treasurer's Office work with the bringer of the bill, if that's okay.
I have the concept of it. If it's acceptable to the committee, I'll check in with Katie and verify that.
Let's, discussion on the amendment. Any discussion on the amendment? Senator French? Senator Larson?
Mr. Chairman, what I heard was all investment earnings be kept in the account. Is that generally?
Okay. Can I ask the President to come up here? Mr. President, can I have some comment from you? Do you support this?
I do.
You
Yes.
do?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that's fine with me. You're the appropriators, but I think the money should go back into the account. If you guys wish to do that, I think that certainly wouldn't hurt the bill at all. It would be just fine.
Okay, so any other discussion on the amendment? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carried. Any other discussion on the bill? Roll call.
Roll call on Senate File 123 as amended. Senator Driscoll. Aye. Senator French. Aye. Senator Garou.
Aye.
Senator Larson.
Aye.
And Chairman Salzar.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, you have 5 ayes, do pass amended.
The next Senate bill is Senate File 67, Wyoming State Guard Amendments. Either way, whatever you'd like to do. Maybe if you sit next to the General. And General, please come up. I want to apologize for the wait, General, but the bills in front of you were consequential with regard to timing and so.
Hey, Mr. President, no apologies necessary. I understand the immense amount of issues that you're trying to work through.
I appreciate that. Senator Larson.
Mr. Chairman and committee members, I bring you Senate File 67, and it's been through the Judiciary Committee yesterday. It's a pretty brief bill. They did do some amendments that I'll talk about. I was going to go ahead and read what the bill does, just so people have an idea.
Okay.
The
I think, Senator, we've read the bill, but if you want to give an overview of the bill, that would be fine.
Mr. Chairman, to do away, I think, save our time, if you all have read it, I think
Well, just give us 2 or 3 minutes of an overview of the bill.
Oh, okay. Mr. Chairman, thank you. The Wyoming State Guard has been authorized in law over a century, but has never been organized. If organized, it would be a separate branch of the organized state militia, independent of the National Guard, a state military force with no federal obligations, commanded by the governor through the adjunct general sitting beside me. Its primary purpose would be to provide support and backup of the state's National Guard in performance of its state's missions, especially if the National Guard is activated into Title X federal service and deployed out of the state. It has a very limited scope. It amends our existing state guard statutes to align with current federal law, under which, since 1983, this federal government exercises no oversight and offers no financial support. These amendments would streamline the process of organizing our state guard should a governor choose to do so. The bill does not call for the organization of the state guard at this time, nor does it obligate any funds or resources for that purpose. It requests that an appropriation of a grand total of only $25,000 over the next 2 years to defray travel and administrative costs of a governor-appointed Council of Defense. This council is called for by existing statute to address issues of size, recruitment, organizational structure, equipment, and mission for the Wyoming State Guard prior to any decision to proceed with its organization. And I would like to thank Major General for all the support he has given me on this bill.
General Porter, do you have any comments?
Mr. Chairman, I do not. I thought the Senator covered it very well. I really stand for questions.
Okay. As the committee knows, I think this is a re-referral. We're only discussing the 25,000. Any questions? Thank you both, appreciate it. The room is empty, so I'm assuming there's no public comment. Is there anyone online? Okay, what is the committee's pleasure?
Move the bill.
Move the bill, is there a second?
Second.
Second, any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I do have an amendment, but if you don't want the committee to hear it.
No, as I said today,
Okay.
I'll take amendments from the author of any bills that are before us.
Mr. Chairman, I just would like to let you know that Judiciary is going to bring a committee amendment. They deleted on page 3, they deleted line 14 through 23. They deleted on page 4, line 2 all the way through line 19. So they got rid of a bunch of language that was confusing what we're trying to do. And then I have a suggested amendment that came from Major General Porter, and it was, it will be on line 2, page 2, line 2, delete insurrection or to repel. And then on page 2, line 13, delete invasion, and then insert the language that's shown. I can read it if you want to.
So is that the amendment you're asking us to consider?
Mr. Chairman, that is correct.
Okay, questions? Senator Guru.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have a problem in the world with the motion, or the amendment, and I think it's fine. But if it's a re-referral to us, I'm looking over at Senator Driscoll, who's forgotten more about this stuff than I know. I think all we do is the money. I think that's all we can do here. I don't think we can make amendments to the specifics of the bill.
Mr. Chairman, we just did it in quite a few bills, but it's your choice.
Well, if it's a re-referral versus the bill for us, this bill was in Judiciary and then did on the floor. These other ones were ours.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
Right, so that was the only difference.
So I don't.
And I've been in a lot of trouble
Yeah, we get in trouble for that.
So I think this would.
Mr. Chairman, I'll do it on the floor.
Floor, right.
Yep.
So any other discussion on this bill? Roll call.
Roll call vote on Senate File 67. Senator Driscoll. Aye. Senator French. Aye. Senator Garou.
Aye.
Senator Larson.
Aye.
And Chairman Salzar. Aye. Mr. Chairman, 5 ayes do pass. Mr. Chairman, I don't have any other referrals on my desk. So, yeah.
With that, I will adjourn this meeting.